our Rants and Raves of the week, and I'm going to start with you, Dan.
Emily, I have a rant for the District of Columbia Court of Appeals, which this week made a ruling that the FCC may not mandate that Internet service providers treat all of their customers equally. The FCC has a rule known as net neutrality, or they did have a rule known as net neutrality, that says that an Internet service provider such as Verizon or Comcast cannot treat one type of traffic differently from another. And as journalists, we really ought to be concerned about this because, as Josh Stearns of Free Press has pointed out, this raises the possibility that, for instance, a CNN could cut a deal with Verizon for really good fast transmission, and all of a sudden Al Jazeera America becomes very difficult to watch. So this is really a matter of the Internet ought to be treated like a public utility. The telephone lines are treated like a public utility. This ruling may not be the end of the world. The court kind of laid out ways that the FCC might be able to redo this. Let's hope they do it.
And we used to hear more about it, but you know, it's sort of gotten shunted to the side on the political stage because there were congresspersons who were speaking up about this as well.
Because it's a complicated issue to communicate, to get people passionate about, but it is really important. Exactly.
Exactly. All right, Josh.
Aaron Kushner was one of the bidders for the Boston Globe the first time it was up for sale, and decided, even though he didn't get it then, and the New York Times company decided not to sell at that point, he decided to buy the Orange County Register in California. He has since bought a couple other neighboring news operations, and has done something very counterintuitive in the newspaper business, which has seen better days financially. He's decided we're going to invest in a lot of content. We're going to hire dozens and hundreds of reporters. We're going to staff up, and we're going to try to create a high-value product and sell as much as we can. Lots of people in the media business loved the vision that he was putting forward. Unfortunately, this past week, he decided that it wasn't working so well.
He did the opposite.
So he laid off about 70 journalists at two of the papers that he has there. Just last month, when he was November, when he was trying to purchase one of the papers, it seemed that there were cash flow issues. It seems that the vision that he had doesn't seem to be working out very well. On one hand, everyone likes to have more journalists having jobs, but on the other hand, sometimes you can be a little bit too counterintuitive for your own good. This didn't seem like a model that was going to make a lot of sense.
Meanwhile, he's still planning to launch a paper in Los Angeles with a very small staff.
A staff of 0 is the technical number. He said he's going to cover Los Angeles while not adding a single reporter, just having laid off 70 of them.
Wow.
It's a
All
problem.
right, Callie, what do you got?
There is a fight in Washington, speaking of close-knit folks, between Jim Vandehei and John Harris, who are the founders of Politico, and mine is a rant about both of these two, and the Washington Post. They left the Washington Post. They offered up their idea about Politico to the Washington Post. Post said, and so they went and started it. Now, as we know, Politico is a big, deal. But the criticism is really centered around Mike Allen, who writes this column called The Playbook. It's come up before, and Eric Wimple of the Post has written saying there are some conflicts of interest, some funding that's really should make everybody squeamish. It's journalistically and unethically doing some things that he ought not be doing in terms of putting the content that he puts in the Playbook. The Politico has denied that, but I gotta say, Mark Leibovich, wrote about this too in his book called This Town. So the two of them are fighting about it out in public. They're trying to resolve their issues, and in the meantime, Mike Allen just keeps doing what he's doing. So I don't know that anybody is well served here, and people need to be well served by both of these institutions that have a lot to say about the agenda setting of political stories in the nation, not just in Washington.
Yeah, and Politico hasn't done a vigorous enough job saying, they've said these allegations are not true, but they haven't really shown a lot of evidence to back that, and I think they have some real things to respond to.
I do too.
All right, Marjorie.
Well, this is a rave with a couple of reservations for Vogue magazine, which put Lena Dunham. I know you don't like her, Callie, on the cover of Vogue. She's the star of Girls, which is a very popular show for 20-something women about the bunch of girls in Brooklyn. But the reason they did Photoshop her, and they Photoshop a lot of people in the magazine. We have a picture, I think, of her and sitting next to the bathtub, and so she's Photoshopped a little bit. She's not a cookie cutter figure. She's a little bit heavier. But here's what I love. Number one, I love that Vogue magazine is putting more women that are not cookie cutters on their cover and inside in these very sexy looking photo spreads. And I love the fact that Lena Dunham is an unusual young woman. She's not the classic figure. But she's naked a lot on that show, and she's confident in her body, and she looks terrific, and she's sexy, and it's an image that young women never get to see. And men are complaining about it, saying, why do we have to look at this young woman without her clothes on? They just, it's a big controversy. So I just love her self-confidence, and good for her for sticking to it.
Well, that part of it I did, but didn't they Photoshop her, you just said?
They did, but they Photoshop everybody.
They
Photoshopped,
made her look thinner.
Gwyneth
I
Paltrow
know.
gets
But I
photoshopped.
would suggest going to Jezebel.com, which
I
has the
know,
original
I know.
photos.
Yeah.
Okay, finally tonight I have a
$10,000.
rant myself for the television station in St. Louis, KSDK. And they did this big undercover thing where they were trying to see how secure schools were. So they go into 4 elementary schools, and we've got a little bit of video of this undercover. And sure enough, they can't get in. They're trying. You have to, push a button and then call people and get in. But then they go to this Kirkwood High School and they walk right in, triggering a lockdown of this school for 40 minutes. But it's a high school, which is the one thing that they don't emphasize. So it's like most high schools are more open. They have a come-and-go policy. And, so they were very defensive of this thing. But it was, I thought, a real Nimrod move. All right.
Okay.
All right, you've heard our points of view. Now we want to hear from you. Can Jenny Dell date a Sox player and report on the team? Are the Kellers cancer op-eds fair or foul? Weigh in on our website, beatthepress.org. You can also catch up past episodes or watch any of this show you may have missed. I'm Emily Rooney. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for watching Beat the Press. Stay with WGBH News wherever you go, on TV, on radio, online, on mobile. WGBH News, local depth, local perspective.